Asterisk asterisk Part 1. The Unexpected Encounter asterisk asterisk. In a quiet town on the edge of nowhere, life moved slowly for everyone. People woke up to the sound of birds and the soft hum of everyday work. John, a simple man with a kind heart, lived his life like many others in the town. He went to work each day, helped his neighbors, and enjoyed the small pleasures of life. But on one ordinary evening, everything changed. John was walking home from the small local store. The sun was setting, painting the sky with soft pinks and oranges. As he walked along the dusty road, he noticed a strange light in the distance. The light was not like the street lamps or the headlights of a car. It was a pulsing glow that seemed to come from nowhere. His heart beat faster as he wondered what could be causing such an odd shine. At first, John thought it might be an unusual weather phenomenon, or even a trick of the light. But as he moved closer, he saw a figure standing silently in the open field. The figure was tall and dressed in dark, sleek clothing that did not belong to this world. Its eyes, cold and calculating, scanned the area with an intensity that made John's skin crawl. In that moment, he felt a deep, unexplained fear. John stopped in his tracks. His instincts told him to run, yet his body felt frozen as he stared at the figure. The alien was clearly not from around here. It moved with a grace that was both beautiful and terrifying, and its presence seemed to fill the air with a sense of danger. The figure held a small device that glowed with a soft blue light, and it was clear that this was not a mere wanderer. The look in its eyes, though hidden under a hood, revealed a sharp focus, a mission that could not be ignored. Without a sound, the figure took a few slow steps forward. John's mind raced as he tried to understand what he was witnessing. The person was an assassin, sent from a far-off place with a deadly purpose. Yet something about the way the figure moved, the subtle hesitation in its step, made John feel that this was not an ordinary hit. He could sense a secret behind the calm exterior, something hidden under layers of duty and orders. John's first thought was to run home and call for help, but his legs did not obey him. He was rooted to the spot as if held by invisible chains. The silence of the evening was broken only by the distant chirping of crickets and the soft rustle of leaves. Every sound around him seemed magnified by the tension in the air. In that moment, the whole world shrank to just him and the mysterious assassin standing before him. The assassin paused, and for a split second, their eyes met. John felt a strange connection, as if the assassin's gaze held a question he could not answer. It was not a look of pure malice. There was something more, an emotion that was hard to define. Perhaps it was regret, or maybe a spark of confusion about the task at hand. In that brief moment, John saw a glimmer of humanity in the eyes that should have been cold and unfeeling. Slowly, the figure raised a hand as if to signal something. The hand moved with a careful precision, and John noticed a small silver emblem on the wrist, an insignia that he had never seen before, yet somehow it stirred a sense of familiarity. It was as if fate had brought them together, and the assassin's mission was not as clear-cut as it once seemed. John managed to speak, his voice trembling. "Who are you? What do you want from me?" The question hung in the air, unanswered by the figure. The assassin did not speak a word. Instead, it simply took a step back, lowering its hand. The silent response was more powerful than any words could be, and it left John with a mix of relief and growing curiosity. The encounter lasted only a few minutes, but it felt like an eternity. John could not shake the feeling that he had just met someone very important. As the figure turned and began to walk away, the light from the device flickered and then faded into the darkening sky. The assassin disappeared as mysteriously as it had appeared, leaving John alone with his racing thoughts and a deep sense of foreboding. For the rest of that night, John lay awake in his small room. He replayed every moment of the encounter in his mind. Who was that alien assassin? Why had she come to kill him? And what was it about him that made her pause and hesitate? These questions churned in his mind, refusing to let him sleep. Even though he lived a quiet life, He now felt that his destiny was forever changed by this unexpected meeting. In the days that followed, John could not return to his normal routine. The memory of that encounter haunted him, and he wondered if it was a warning or the start of something much larger. Uncertainty filled his heart, and he realized that the world was not as simple as it had once seemed. Somewhere out there, forces beyond his understanding were at work, and now he was a part of a story that would change his life forever. The unexpected encounter set the stage for a new journey, one filled with mystery, danger, and a twist that neither John nor the assassin could have foreseen. The line between enemy and friend had begun to blur, hinting at a future where the mission might change in ways that could rewrite both of their destinies. Part 2. The Shadowed Pursuit. The next day, John felt the weight of that strange night pressing on his mind. Every small sound and movement in his town now held a hint of danger. As he went about his usual tasks, he could not shake the feeling of being watched. There was an unseen presence in every shadow, and his heart beat a little faster with each step. From a distance, the alien assassin moved with silent precision. She kept a careful distance, blending into the everyday crowd and the quiet corners of the town. Though she did not follow John openly, her eyes were fixed on him. Her mission had changed, but the duty that once drove her still tugged at her. She was caught in a struggle between orders and a newfound purpose that she had discovered the night before. John started to notice odd things. In the market, he saw a familiar dark figure in a corner where few looked. On his walk home from work, he felt the prickle of eyes in the back of his neck. At first, he tried to convince himself that it was his imagination. But when a soft, steady pace behind him became too clear to ignore, he knew he was being followed. He tried to lose the feeling by focusing on simple tasks, buying his bread from the small bakery, chatting with his neighbor over a cup of tea, or simply watching the sunset from his porch. Yet every time he looked over his shoulder, there was the brief glimpse of a shadow slipping behind a tree or vanishing into an alley. This growing presence filled John with both fear and curiosity. The assassin, whose name was not yet known to John, moved like a ghost among the people. Every step she took was careful, and every pause was calculated. Her mind was torn between the harsh orders given to her and the strange new emotions that had surfaced after that first encounter. Watching John, she began to see him as more than a target. There was something about his gentle nature and calm bravery in the face of fear that made her pause. Yet, her training and her past did not let her fully relax. She had to be ready for any moment. One late afternoon, as the town tussle faded into a quiet calm, John took a shortcut through a narrow street lined with old brick houses. The area was dimly lit, and the silence was almost complete. It was then that the soft, almost unnoticeable sound of footsteps grew closer behind him. John quickened his pace, his eyes scanning the empty street. Without warning, a flash of movement caught his eye, a silhouette dashing behind a parked car. His heart raced. He stopped and listened, and the sound of the footsteps resumed, slow and steady. Feeling trapped, John turned into a small side lane, hoping to lose his follower among the winding paths. But the quiet alley offered no comfort. It only deepened his sense of isolation. As he rounded a corner, John nearly bumped into a stray dog. The creature yelped and ran off, startled by the tension in the air. The sound echoed in the alley, and for a moment, John thought he saw a faint glimmer of blue light reflect off a small device in the shadow behind him. It was the same soft blue glow he had seen the night before, a reminder of the assassin's mysterious presence. In that moment, John decided to stop running. Instead, he faced the darkness, determined to uncover the truth. His voice was quiet but firm as he called out, "Who's there? Show yourself." His words hung in the air, met only by silence and the soft echo of distant sounds. From the darkness, a figure slowly emerged, not with threatening steps, but with careful, measured movements. The assassin stepped forward, her eyes hidden under a hood, her posture relaxed yet alert. There was no immediate threat in her stance, Instead, there was a hesitant kind of calm. It was as if she wanted to speak but was unsure if the time was right. For several long moments, they simply looked at each other in the sparse light of the alley. John searched the eyes of the stranger, hoping to see some sign of why she was following him. The assassin's gaze, steady and deep, carried an unspoken message, a promise of something to come, a secret waiting to be shared. Without a word, she took a small step back and melted into the shadows once more. The moment was brief, but left John with more questions than answers. The chase had ended as quietly as it had begun, and the silence of the alley returned. Yet, John's life had been irrevocably changed. He now knew that he was not alone, that someone, an enemy-turned-uncertain friend, was watching him closely. As John slowly made his way back to the main road, his mind was filled with a mix of fear and hope. The shadowed pursuit was not over. With every step he took, the silent guardian in the dark continued to follow, protecting him in ways yet to be understood. The mystery of the alien assassin deepened, and the lines between enemy and protector blurred. John realized that his fate was now intertwined with this stranger from another world, and that the real story had just begun. A change in mission. After the silent encounter in the alley, a quiet change began to take shape in the assassin's heart. In a small, hidden room in her ship, she sat alone and stared at the holographic images of her mission. Every detail was clear. Eliminate the target and leave no trace behind. Yet now, her thoughts kept drifting back to the brief look of hesitation in John's eyes. It was a look that spoke of innocence, courage, and something else she could not name. Her name was Zora, though she rarely used it. To her commanders, she was nothing more than an efficient tool. Tonight, however, Zara felt the stirrings of doubt. She replayed the events of that day in her mind, questioning every order that had led her to Earth. The blue light from her device, the moment when she saw John's genuine fear mixed with curiosity. It all had begun to change her view of the mission. In the quiet hum of her ship, she felt a pull to do more than follow orders blindly. Zara slowly rose from her seat and walked over to a small window, peering out at the dark expanse of space. The stars shone like tiny beacons of hope, and for a moment she allowed herself to dream of a different path. She recalled the first time she was trained to be an assassin. The lessons were harsh, and the path was clear. Kill without question, complete the mission, and do not get attached. But standing here, far from the cold training grounds of her past, Zara felt that something had shifted. The next morning on Earth, while John was busy with his daily routine, Zara took a daring step. Instead of silently following him from the shadows, she decided to watch him from a distance, hoping to learn more about this man who had unexpectedly made her question her own nature. Hidden behind trees and parked cars, she observed John in the small market square, listening to his gentle words as he greeted the shopkeepers and neighbors. In every small act, he showed kindness and care for those around him. As hours passed, Zora's mind grew more conflicted. She remembered the strict orders from her superiors, orders that did not leave room for hesitation or mercy. But as she watched John help an elderly neighbor carry groceries and laugh with a young child, she wondered if there was more to her mission than simply ending a life. Perhaps in some way, John's existence meant something greater for the people of Earth, something that could not be undone by a single act of violence. That night, Zara made a decision that would change everything. In a quiet clearing on the outskirts of town, she activated a small communicator device. With trembling fingers, she sent a brief message to her commanders, stating that her mission was now on hold. She wrote only a few simple words: "I cannot kill them." The message was short, but it carried the weight of her entire inner struggle. Back on Earth, John felt the changes too. The feeling of being followed was still there, but now it was different. It was less threatening and more like the watchful eyes of a guardian. At first, John did not understand why he felt a mix of fear and relief whenever he sensed the presence behind him. Over time, he began to notice that the figure in the shadows was not only following him, but sometimes even stepping in to defuse dangerous situations, stopping a sudden car accident, warning a group of children to move away from harm, or quietly preventing a mugging in a dark street. Though he could never see her face clearly, John sensed that this person had a protective side. Zara continued her watchful vigil, now openly altering her behavior. Each day, she made small gestures to protect John from dangers that he might not even see coming. At one point, when a stray fire broke out in a nearby building, Zara was the first to extinguish it, working behind the scenes so that no one noticed her presence. These acts of secret kindness began to rewrite the story of her mission. It was as if the simple goodness in John's life was teaching her a new way of being. However, the change in Zara's heart did not come without conflict. Deep inside her, there was a war between her ingrained duty and the surprising feelings that had surfaced. In quiet moments, she would think about her past and the harsh words of her instructors, who had taught her that mercy was a weakness. Yet now, as she witnessed the everyday beauty of human kindness and resilience, Zara realized that her strength might lie in compassion rather than cruelty. Her internal battle grew with each passing day. One evening, as she trailed John from a distance, she found herself unable to turn away from a scene in the park. There, John sat on a bench, reading a worn-out book, completely unaware of the world's dangers. The calm in his eyes, the softness of his smile, it was enough to melt the last remnants of the assassin she once was. In that quiet moment, Zara understood that her life had taken a new path. She could no longer be the weapon she was trained to be. Her mission had changed, not by force, but by a choice born from an unexpected connection. As the stars emerged in the night sky, Zara felt a sense of peace that she had never known before. Her decision to protect John, to let go of her former orders, was now complete. She knew that challenges would come, and that her superiors might one day send someone to remind her of her past. But for now, she embraced her new purpose. The assassin was gone, replaced by someone who cared, a protector who had found a new destiny through the simple act of watching and understanding. This change marked the beginning of a new journey for both Zara and John. The line between enemy and guardian blurred, and what started as a deadly assignment transformed into a story of unexpected redemption and hope. In the quiet exchange of glances and unspoken promises, the future was being written, one small act of courage at a time. The hidden protector. As dawn broke over the quiet town, a new day began with a promise of hidden deeds and silent watchfulness. Zara moved in the background like a careful shadow, her mission now completely transformed. No longer was she driven solely by the orders to kill. Instead, she had chosen to guard John, the one person who had shown her a glimpse of something better. Her actions, though unseen by the common eye, spoke loudly of her inner change. That morning, while John started his day in his small apartment, Zara was already out in the world. She watched from a discreet distance as he walked to a local cafe. Her eyes followed him, taking in every little detail of his simple life. In her heart, she knew that even the smallest acts of kindness mattered. Today, she decided, she would protect him from the dangers lurking in the corners of his seemingly ordinary world. As John sipped his coffee and read the morning paper, a subtle movement caught Zara's eye. A rough-looking man, hidden under a worn jacket and dark cap, was slowly approaching the cafe. His eyes darted around nervously, and his hand clutched a small metallic object. Zara sensed danger. Although it was not clear what the man intended, his body language told her that he was not there for a friendly chat. Without a word, she began to move, keeping herself at a safe distance, but close enough to intervene if needed. John was lost in his thoughts, unaware of the potential threat inching closer. The man slipped into the cafe and took a seat in a shadowed corner. Zara's mind raced as she recalled her training, a lifetime of stealth and precision. But now, those skills would serve a different purpose. She would use every ounce of her expertise to keep John safe. Quietly, she activated a small device on her wrist, scanning the surroundings. The signal confirmed her suspicion. The man's device was not a harmless gadget, but a tool intended to cause harm. For several tense minutes, Zara observed. The man's eyes moved from side to side, as if he was searching for someone. It became clear that he was here on a mission of his own. Zara decided that intervention was needed. She slipped into the cafe, careful not to draw attention to herself. With each step, she moved with a silent urgency. As she neared the potential threat, she noticed that the man was now reaching into his pocket, his hand moving towards a weapon. Zara's heart pounded, not with fear for herself, but with determination to stop him before any harm could be done. In one swift motion, Zara intercepted the man. Her hand moved fast and sure, grabbing his wrist and twisting it in a controlled lock. The sudden action startled the man, and he froze. Zara's grip was firm, her eyes cold yet focused. "I suggest you leave," she said in a low, steady voice. The man, shocked by her sudden appearance and unexpected strength, hesitated for a moment. In that moment of indecision, Zara applied just enough pressure to send a clear message. The man grumbled, and with a final glance of uncertainty, he backed away and slipped out of the cafe. John looked up at the brief commotion, confused but mostly relieved as the threat vanished as quickly as it had come. He wondered if it had been a simple misunderstanding, or if fate was playing a mysterious role in his life. Meanwhile, Zara melted back into the background, her heart beating with the satisfaction of having protected him once again. Every good deed she performed deepened her resolve that she had chosen the right path. Throughout the day, Zara continued her quiet vigil. When John left the cafe to go to work, she shadowed him from a discreet distance. On his way through the busy streets, she carefully monitored every unusual movement and every suspicious character. There were moments when danger seemed imminent. A speeding car nearly hit John on a crowded sidewalk, and a brief scuffle erupted between two street gangs near the bus stop. In each instance, Zara was there, subtly intervening, redirecting a falling object, slowing down a car with a well-timed push, and even stepping in to break up the scuffle before it escalated. Though no one ever saw her, her silent interventions helped steer fate away from disaster. In the quiet recesses of her heart, Zara knew that her actions were changing her more deeply than she had ever imagined. Each small rescue built her confidence and chipped away at the hardened edges of her past. The transformation was gradual yet undeniable. The assassin who once followed orders without question was now a protector who acted on a new code, a code based on care, empathy, and the belief that every life had worth. As dusk approached, John returned to his home, unaware of the full extent of the day's events, but comforted by the inexplicable sense of safety that had followed him all day. In his small living room, he sat by the window and gazed out at the fading light. He felt as if an unseen guardian was watching over him, a thought that both puzzled and calmed him. In a nearby rooftop, hidden from view, Zara watched the horizon with a quiet smile. The world was full of shadows and dangers, yet in protecting John, she found a purpose that redefined her very existence. The path ahead was uncertain, and she knew challenges would come, but as long as she could continue this work, she felt that she was finally living a life of meaning. Thus, the Hidden Protector's story grew, one of silent bravery and constant vigilance. Each day offered new risks and new opportunities to make a difference. Zara's actions were a secret symphony of courage, each note a promise that John, and perhaps the world at large, would be safe from the looming threats of a dark, indifferent universe. The rising threat. In the days that followed, the quiet town began to show signs of a darker presence. John's life, once filled with simple routines and peaceful moments, was now touched by whispers of danger that lurked just beyond the familiar streets. Zara continued her watchful presence, but even she sensed that something new was coming, a threat that would force her to face not only her past, but also dangers that she had never imagined. It started with subtle hints. Local news spoke of strange power outages and unusual behavior in people who once kept to themselves. A few residents reported seeing odd lights in the sky at night, and some even claimed that the stars looked different as if another world was watching them. John heard these rumors in hushed voices at the market and in quiet conversations at the cafe. He felt that there was more at work than the random events of daily life. One chilly evening, as John made his way home along a deserted street, the air felt unnaturally heavy. The sky, usually a canvas of deep blue, was instead smeared with dark clouds that seemed to move against the wind. His heart pounded with the knowledge that the unseen guardian was near. Zara, hidden among the rooftops and shadows, sensed an energy shift in the atmosphere. Something was coming, a force that was not only human but something entirely different. At the same time, in a remote control room on a hidden space station orbiting Earth, high-ranking officers monitored strange activities across the planet. They spoke in urgent tones about a rising threat that could change the balance of power. Reports had come in from multiple regions, cities experiencing sudden bursts of chaos, towns with unexplained disappearances, and even some isolated communities where time seemed to freeze. Among these reports, one name began to stand out, a powerful entity or organization that might be behind these disturbances. Although no one could say for sure, the hints were enough to send waves of tension through the ranks. Back on Earth, John noticed that his once familiar world now felt unpredictable. While walking near the park one late afternoon, he saw a group of strangers huddled in a circle, their faces lit by the glow of a strange device that pulsed with an eerie blue light, the same light that Zara often carried. This time, however, the device was not in the hands of a silent guardian, but held by someone who seemed intent on using it. The group's whispers grew louder as they discussed plans in a language John could not understand, their eyes scanning the area for any sign of trouble. Zara felt a cold shiver run through her. This was not a random gathering. It was a signal that another player had entered the scene, a player with far more dangerous intentions than she had ever faced. She knew that these strangers were part of the rising threat. They were organized and determined, and their technology was advanced enough to challenge even someone like her, who had seen a change of heart. The threat was not just to John, but to the safety of the entire town, and possibly to the world. That night, as dark clouds swallowed the moonlight, the threat made its presence known. A low, humming sound filled the air, and the ground beneath the town trembled slightly. Streetlights flickered and died, leaving long, stretching shadows in their wake. John, who had been returning home from an evening walk, stopped in his tracks. His eyes widened as he saw figures emerging from the darkness, individuals dressed in strange uniforms and armed with devices that pulsed with the same blue glow. They moved with a precision that suggested military training and a purpose that was clear. They were here to capture or eliminate a target, and John, now marked by fate, was in their path. Zara, watching from her hidden perch, felt her heart race. This was the moment of truth. The organized group moved swiftly through the streets, creating a path of silent authority that left terrified residents ducking behind closed doors. She knew that if she did not act now, John's fate, and the safety of those around him, would be sealed by forces much darker than anything she had ever encountered. Summoning all her courage, Zara made a decision. She would step out from the shadows and confront this rising threat head-on. Moving with stealth and determination, she slipped away from her rooftop and headed toward the heart of the disturbance. Every step was a battle against her own instincts to remain hidden, for she knew that if she revealed herself, she might also attract the attention of those who had once commanded her deadly actions. In the chaos of the night, with sirens beginning to wail in the distance as local authorities arrived too late, Zara intercepted one of the intruders. A brief, fierce struggle broke out in the narrow street, illuminated by the harsh glare of a street lamp. Zara's movements were swift and sure, a blend of her old training and her new resolve. She disarmed the assailant and forced him to retreat, leaving him with a warning in her eyes. "This is not the way. I will not let you harm him." The intruder ran, and as more of the mysterious group advanced, Zara's presence grew bolder. She moved to create barriers, using every trick she knew to delay and confuse the attackers. Meanwhile, John, hidden in a doorway, watched the unfolding events with a mix of fear and awe. He had known that his life was about to change, but he never imagined it would come with such fierce and sudden danger. The rising threat had made itself known, and as Zara fought to protect John and the town, the lines between friend and foe blurred even further. In that night of turmoil and courage, both John and Zara realized that their destinies were now tied not only by a single fateful encounter, but by the rising storm that threatened to engulf them all. The bond unfolds. After that long and dangerous night, the town slowly returned to a quiet normality. But for John, nothing was ever the same. He now knew that his life was connected to forces far beyond his small world. In the days that followed, John's thoughts were filled with questions about the mysterious protector, Zara, whose presence had saved him from harm more than once. At the same time, Zara herself began to feel the weight of her choices. No longer was she just the silent assassin lurking in the dark. She was now a guardian with a growing sense of care and responsibility. One crisp morning, as John sat on a park bench watching the early light dance across the dew, he finally mustered the courage to step closer to the truth. He had noticed that whenever he felt alone or afraid, there was a hint of a familiar figure watching from the edges of his vision. Today, driven by a mix of curiosity and a need to understand the bond that had been forming, he decided to wait in a quiet corner of the park. Unbeknownst to him, Zara had been observing him as well. Since the night of the confrontation, she had started to lower her guard ever so slightly. She began to notice details about John that she had not seen before, the way his eyes lit up when he helped a stray animal, or how he paused to speak kindly with an old man on the street. These simple acts of humanity made her question everything she had ever been taught. Now, she found herself wishing to learn more about the man behind the mystery. As the morning sun grew higher, a gentle breeze stirred the leaves around John. He felt a strange calm in the air, as if the world was holding its breath in anticipation. Then, from behind a cluster of trees, Zara emerged slowly. This time, she did not hide her face under a heavy hood. Her eyes, filled with both resolve and a hint of sadness, met John's curious gaze. There was no danger in her stance now, only an invitation for understanding. John rose from the bench, heart pounding, but not from fear. Instead, he was filled with hope and a deep desire to know the truth. "Who are you?" he asked softly. His voice was steady, betraying neither the tremor of anxiety nor the rush of adrenaline that had become all too familiar over the past weeks. Zara hesitated for a moment before answering. In a clear, gentle tone, she said, "I used to be an assassin. I was sent to kill you. But my mission changed when I saw something in you that made me pause. I realized there is more to life than following orders blindly." Her words, simple yet profound, hung in the air as John listened intently. In that quiet moment, the two strangers began to share more than just a past of danger and duty. John spoke of his simple life, his hopes, and the small acts of kindness he had witnessed in his community. Zara, in turn, revealed fragments of her own story. A childhood filled with rigorous training, a harsh world where mercy was seen as weakness, and the long years spent perfecting the art of a silent kill. But now, standing in the soft morning light, she confessed that something had shifted inside her when she encountered the goodness in John's eyes. Over the next few days, their meetings became more frequent. They chose safe, quiet places away from prying eyes. A small cafe, a hidden park corner, or a quiet street after sunset. In each meeting, the bond between them grew stronger. John learned that Zara had been trained to value efficiency over empathy, and yet her actions had begun to show a deep caring that contradicted everything she had been taught. Zara discovered that even a life as ordinary as John's could be filled with quiet heroism, and that true strength sometimes lay in kindness and compassion. As their trust deepened, they began to discuss the rising threat that had cast a shadow over the town. John shared his worries about the strange group that had come after him, and Zara explained that she had sensed a larger force behind those attacks, a powerful organization with plans that could harm not only John but many innocent lives. Together, they started to form a plan. John's knowledge of the town and its people, combined with Zora's training and ability to move unseen, made them an unlikely but effective team. Their meetings were filled with long talks about hope, danger, and the choices that could change the course of destiny. They both realized that while the past could not be undone, the future was still open to change. Every shared story, every moment of vulnerability, and every small act of trust was a building block for a new alliance, a bond that went beyond the roles of killer and target. In the quiet moments of the day, as they planned and prepared for the challenges ahead, both John and Zara began to see themselves in a new light. John discovered a strength he never knew he had, a determination to stand up against fear and injustice. Zara, on the other hand, began to believe that she could redefine her purpose, leaving behind the life of an assassin to become a protector and a guide. Their bond was unique. It was built not on grand gestures or dramatic battles alone, but on the simple truth that two very different lives could meet and change each other's worlds forever. As they sat together on that park bench, beneath the sky slowly brightening with the promise of a new day, they understood that their journey was only beginning. The rising threat still loomed, but with trust, shared courage, and a growing friendship, they felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. In this unfolding alliance, hope replaced fear, and the seeds of a new destiny were sown. The bond between John and Zara became a beacon, a silent promise that even in a world filled with shadows, light could be found in the meeting of two unexpected hearts. A new destiny. In the days that followed their growing bond, John and Zara realized that the threat looming over the town was only the first sign of a larger storm. Together, they worked to uncover clues and plan their next steps, knowing that their lives had been changed forever. Their partnership had grown from a chance meeting into a deep alliance, and now they faced the future with a shared purpose. John, with his gentle determination, began to see his quiet town in a new light. Every familiar street and every friendly face now carried a hidden meaning, as if the community itself was part of a larger story. He listened closely to whispered rumors and subtle hints from his neighbors, gathering pieces of information about the strange group that had tried to harm him. Slowly, he began to piece together a puzzle that pointed to a secret organization with plans far beyond the borders of their small town. Zara, on the other hand, drew strength from her new role. Her past as an assassin had taught her to be precise and efficient, but now she applied those skills to protect not only John but also the people around them. She spent long hours studying the enemy's tactics and training herself to use her abilities in new ways. She learned to move through the night with an even sharper awareness and to trust her instincts when danger lurked in unexpected places. One cool, clear evening, John and Zara met in a small clearing near the edge of town. The sky above was full of bright stars, and the soft hum of night creatures filled the air. They sat on a wooden bench, sharing their thoughts and plans. John spoke quietly about the voices he had heard among the townspeople, whispers of a hidden power that was slowly gathering strength. Zara listened intently, her eyes reflecting both worry and resolve. "We must be ready for what comes next," Zara said, her voice calm but firm. "I have seen signs that this threat is only the beginning. There are others like them, hidden in the shadows, and they will not stop until they have complete control." John nodded, his heart heavy with both fear and hope. "I never thought I would be part of something so big," he admitted. "But now I see that even in a small town, there is a part to play in the larger story of our world. I want to help. I want to stand up for what is right." Their conversation lasted well into the night. They discussed ways to warn the community and to gather allies, people who could help form a resistance against the secret organization. Slowly, a plan began to take shape. They decided to start by meeting with a few trusted friends from the town, sharing what they knew and asking for help in keeping everyone safe. With Zora's skills and John's genuine kindness, They believed they could rally the people to prepare for the coming storm. In the weeks that followed, John and Zara worked together in secrecy. They visited small homes, met with local leaders, and shared a simple message: that there was a growing danger, but also that there was hope in unity. Zara's change from a cold, duty-bound assassin to a caring protector inspired many who had once feared the unknown. Her willingness to stand up for what was right gave courage to those who felt alone. John's natural warmth and trust in people helped bridge the gap between fear and hope, uniting the community in a common cause. Yet, the enemy was not idle. Reports of strange activities grew more frequent. Unusual lights in the sky, sudden blackouts in parts of the town, and the disappearance of a few local residents added urgency to John and Zara's mission. Every time the secret organization acted, it drove the two closer together. They learned to trust each other implicitly, their bond growing stronger with every shared hardship and every small victory over danger. One fateful night, while the town slept under a blanket of darkness, the secret organization made its boldest move yet. A group of armed figures, dressed in dark uniforms and carrying advanced tools, descended upon the town. Their purpose was clear: to seize control and silence any who would stand in their way. In the chaos that followed, as frightened residents sought shelter, John and Zara met once more at their safe place, a hidden building near the town center where they had gathered a few trusted friends. Inside the safe house, voices were hushed and eyes filled with worry. Zara took charge, her training and newfound purpose guiding her words. "We must act now," she urged. "Our community is ready, and together we can push back against this force. But we need to be smart and work as one." John stepped forward, his voice steady. "We have a chance to show that even a small town can stand against a mighty enemy. This is our home, and we will protect it with everything we have." That night, as the enemy advanced through the streets, the people of the town rose in unity. Neighbors helped neighbors. Those who had once been strangers became allies, with Zara leading covert actions from the shadows and John inspiring everyone with his gentle courage. The town fought back. Street by street, they slowed the enemy's advance, stalling their progress until reinforcements arrived from nearby communities. The battle was fierce and uncertain, but in the midst of the struggle, John and Zara found a sense of clarity. Their fight was not only about survival, it was about the future. They were fighting for a new destiny, one where differences could be set aside and unity could light the way forward. As the enemy retreated into the night, leaving the town scared but unbowed, John and Zara stood together under the stars. They knew that many challenges still lay ahead, but in that moment, they felt a deep, unbreakable bond. Their journey had brought them from darkness into a fragile light of hope, and together, they were ready to face whatever the future held. Their new destiny had begun, a destiny built on trust, sacrifice, and the simple belief that even in a world of shadows, light could always be found.